Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fobs HQ. So, I wanted to make this video because I genuinely feel sorry for the generation that's coming up here. I'm a millennial. I think it's like Gen Z, Gen X. I don't know what gen we're on right now. I don't pay too much attention to those boxes that categorize people into certain whatever. Anyways, generally feel sorry, bad for the new generation, the early 20-year-olds right now. They're thinking about buying a house because the housing market, it's crazy. It has been crazy for quite some time now, probably ever since the COVID spike and even before a little bit. That I think maybe in the future I'll make a video about my personal experience of buying the house that I'm currently in. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it was just kind of like how you do business. But there's a lot of advice that I feel like I could give to people, but I don't want to do that because that's an entire video in of itself. What I am going to do though is I made a TikTok account. It's brand new. The algorithm is brand new. There's no anything on there, and all I did was search for real estate prices, and I kind of just want to get a glimpse of what some of the people are saying on here.
House prices are not coming down. We do know that. There's a serious shortage of housing.
So I should say this. I should preface it with this. David Ramsey is great for, like, he has a foundation that's like rooted in saving money and saving as much money as you can. However, my issue with him is that he used to be a real estate agent, and if he always tries to help out his real estate agent personnel as well, and he's also in the business of selling houses as well. He owns multiple homes, sells, buys, sells, all this stuff, right? So there's a conflict of interest there. I don't believe what he's saying in this video, simply because the housing market, from what I've seen on Zillow, not just in my area but in other areas like Seattle, eastern side of the state as well, California, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, all these other states, it is coming down. It's not by a lot, and I think really what he's saying is that the housing prices aren't coming down to what they were prior to that COVID spike back in like 2020, and I think that's what he's saying here. I haven't let him finish here yet, but I mean, for him to make that blatant statement of like they are not coming down, they are coming down, just not by an extraordinary amount.
There are more buyers than sellers, and there's no fix on the horizon for that. That's called a supply-demand pressure. It's seventh grade economics. When there is
Yeah, I mean, that's a statement of fact. I can state a statement of fact as well, but just because my statement of fact is true doesn't mean that the premise is true. So the premise here being that they are not going to come down, right? One of the comments here says, imagine how many people Dave talked out of buying a home from 2009 to 2016. Yeah, that's true. I can see that being an issue. Like, imagine being somebody who has no knowledge of the real estate market, and you just come out here seeking some advice, and you run into Dave Ramsey telling you that the price, or maybe the house that you're looking at, or in the area that you're in, or just in general, then they're not going to be coming down. If you come in with that mindset, you're not going to be one of those person who talks to a real estate agent about maybe seeing if there's a deal that can be worked out with the buyer. 9 times out of 10, you are able to work out, and it's part of the buying process of negotiating with the buyer.
Houses are actually sitting longer, around 43 days compared to 35 days. Now that sounds like home prices should be falling, right? But nope, they are not. Home prices.
So, I mean, just based off the factors that he's talking about, like the amount of time that a home sits on the market is relevant to the amount of time like a vehicle sits on the market. It is a factor that is something that somebody who's looking into buying a house should be taking a look at. So if you're taking a look at a house and you see that it's been sitting for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, that buyer's probably tired of waiting and tired of having people come and look at the house and not buying it. So the odds of them being open for negotiating are very good in comparison to a house that has been sitting for 3 days and they have people that are actually interested in it.
We have to talk about home prices for a second. On average, they are higher than they've ever been, right? That we can all see that. That makes it.
Yeah, I mean, you could have said that statement in 2020 and it would have been true. You could say that pretty much every other year, and that statement is going to be true. If you said in 2020, yeah, the house prices are higher than they've ever been, you could have said it back in 2007 before the financial crisis, and that still would have been true. You could have said it in 2020 or 2010 after the financial crisis, and that still would have been true because the prices of homes are always going up. And even if there's a tank for a moment, it's going to level out between that what Dave Ramsey was talking about, the supply and demand.
Homes. But there is a very
So all he's talking about in this video is the understanding behind why homes are expensive, and he gets into, a house in California that is like 10 times more expensive than a house on the eastern side of a different state that is probably bigger and nicer. For example, I've seen homes in the middle of California where there are being listed on sale for $1 million, while my home is bigger than theirs and it's listed for 100 and something thousand. Yeah, I can understand that, and I think that he has a point. Understanding is a big part of it, but also my go-to is always that the buyer is responsible for researching what they can get. Like if you have a house in the middle of California, maybe that 30-minute commute might be worth it to save $500,000 in the long run. So
guys, we're officially cooked. What the fuck are these homes, y'all? What are these? This is what they ask $400,000-$500,000.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. This looks like a townhouse, and to pay $400,000 for a town home is kind of crazy. I can make an entire video about my personal preferences on a house and what I think of townhouses, but to pay $400,000 and for somebody to be able to hear your music in the same building is kind of unacceptable, if you ask me.
For this looks like chicken coop.
Yeah, the reason why they're like that is because the subdivision, the developer of that subdivision is trying to make as much money as possible, trying to fit in as much square footage as possible into that lot so that they can sell it for a higher price, with obviously the understanding that they have to have a backyard and all that stuff.
What?
I threaten them without threatening them so I don't lose my job. Dear Todd.
So, I mean, why would there need to be a threat just because the appraisal came in at, what is that, $12,000 shorter than what the sales price is? This is that weird relationship between your real estate agent and your loan officer, right? When you go to buy a house, your loan officer is probably going to give you an amount that they think you can afford, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you can actually afford that. When my wife and I bought this home, the loan amount was like $420,000, and we could have bought in a house that was $420,000 or more, I think. We did not do that because we knew that we wanted a child, that my wife wasn't going to work, that I was going to be the only one working, and so we wanted a house where we could do that, and we could have a lot of money to like go fly out to Mexico or to other countries and do all this stuff. So don't fully listen to your loan officer just because your loan officer gives you this high amount that you can afford on it. It's your responsibility to make sure that you can actually afford that house. I don't understand really this video because it seems as if there might be an issue between the appraisal, thinking that a home is valued less than what the sale price, but ultimately at the end of the day, that's the appraiser's job, is to try to get all the factors together and try to find out how much this house is really worth. Let's take a look at some of the comments. The first one, real value is $289,000. Yeah, that's probably what it cost in materials. Lumber also gets expensive. Why don't we do appraisals before we list? Yeah, that's true. Why don't we? But I can see why we don't, and that's because if I were to sell the house that I'm in right now, I wouldn't list it for what it appraises at, because you're always going to have that person who's trying to lowball you, right? Even when you go to sell a car, somebody's going to try to lowball you at a lower rate. So you want to list it higher so that when they lowball you, it's at least at that appraisal rate. But also because if there's people that are willing to pay $20,000-$40,000 to get into the house, a couple of months earlier, why not? If I put my house on the market and I can list it for $50,000 over the appraisal over the appraisal price, why wouldn't I do that? It's unfortunately the capitalist the route that a lot of people take, and you can't really blame them. The economy's not the best, not right now, and it hasn't been the best in years. It's not like a a matter of this administration being in office or that administration being in office. Both of these administrations kind of suck. So they have their pros and their cons. I just had back-to-back weeks where my listing underappraised. Both had multiple offers over asking price and higher than appraisal price. If 3 people are willing to pay that price, that is the value I feel you're paying. Yeah, that's true. If the same applies to everything in the entire world. Like money, $100 is worth $100 because a lot of people come into agreement with that. If everybody in the country thought that $100 were really worth $50, that's what it would be worth. It all comes to what people believe. So if you have 3 people that think that your house is well priced at, $500,000, then that's what the value is. But this is just like a conversation. Like if this guy was a real estate agent, this would just be a conversation that the real estate agent would have with the buyer and be like, hey, look, the appraisal came in. It came in at like 50 grand. Let's just say 50 grand lower. But I do want to let you know that this house has like 3 other buyers, and this buyer or their seller has already turned down 3 offers that were $10,000 under his listing price. But again, this comes back to the buyer's responsibility of whether or not they're going to believe what the real estate agent is saying, and whether they're going to go with that. So like in my scenario, my house was appraised at, bought it at $180,000 and it was on sale for like $224. So that's about $44,000. So I saved myself $44,000 by getting an appraisal, and my real estate agent was really against it. I can talk more about that, but that's all I'll tell you for now.
Would be if I did these 4 things. I'm a lender, and I'm pretty sure I know what these 4 things would do for me.
Conflict of interest. I listen to these people, but I also take into account that there is a conflict of interest because they are a lender. Like this person is selling a product online, or they have it, they have a business on the side that does that. I listen to them. I'm not going to do that for this video though.
If you're buying a house in 2025 or 2026, I want you to watch this video. I'm a licensed mortgage loan officer.
Conflict of interest, right?
In the last 2 to 3 years, I've seen people.
Don't listen to the mortgage loaner, by the way. And I'm just saying, like, listen to them, but don't believe them all the time, because, like I said, the mortgage loaner is going to take a look at your finances. They're going to calculate what you can afford on the house. They're not going to calculate what your heating bill is going to be like, your water bill, your electric bill, your maintenance, if anything breaks on it, what your food costs like on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. So yeah.
Make some of the worst decisions possible with buying a house. Now they stuck in a house that they can't afford, or stuck in a house that they can't sell because there's not enough equity, because they overpaid, they follow outdated advice, and they weren't playing the game thinking like an investor. That is not going to be you, because you're going to listen to every single thing I tell you.
This video is pretty long, but I agree with them on that. Yeah, a lot of people buy homes overpriced, and then they end up house poor.
One piece of advice for home buyers, coming from someone who's helped over 125 people purchase homes over the last 8 years, is to stop giving your leverage away before you need to. Here's what I mean by that. Let's say you go into a showing for a house that you absolutely love. You get in there, you love everything about this house. It is perfect, but the furnace is 35 years old. You can literally hear noises coming out of this thing. It's on its last legs, right? The house is listed for $300,000. You want to make an offer on it, and you say, you know what? We want to take into account that the furnace is old and we're going to have to replace it. It's going to cost us $10,000 to replace it. Let's offer $290,000 for the house, or let's ask the seller to give us $10,000.
So this video is kind of long, but I would agree with him that you should definitely take into account how much it's going to cost to replace something that even remotely looks like it's going to go out. I wish I would have done that with the house, but I mean, with the house that I have now, I mean, I got a pretty good price on it, so I can't complain, but like the roof went out 2 years later, or I think it was like a year later. We had a windstorm, and like the roof just fell apart. So yeah, definitely. I mean, if the plumbing hasn't been done in 20 years, then definitely try to get some of them out. Hey, the plumbing hasn't been done in 20 years, so it's statistically it only has like a couple of more years left, and because it's made out of plastic or whatever, something that sounds reasonable. Tell that to your real estate agent, or if you're lucky enough to talk to the buyer, or sometimes even the real estate agents will say maybe you can write a letter.
$1,000.
Here's a couple of rules we use. Rule number 1 is to be debt free, which you are. Rule number 2 is when you make your down payment, you need to retain enough to call your emergency fund, which is 3.
Yeah, that's really important. The emergency fund stuff too. You never know when you're going to need it. And it's always something that is going to help you out and never hurts to have. I think some people take a look at their emergency fund and they look at how much money it's taken away from what they can spend during that time. But when you're putting into emergency fund, it's important to not think about that and think about how much freedom it's giving you at the end of the day. You know, sometimes your emergency fund gets to such an amount where you're okay to quit your job for like a whole year kind of deal. I'm not saying that you should do that, but definitely it's something that can allow you to have freedom. So yeah.
Part, you get to go on the home search with your agent. Number 3 is submitting an offer.
Number 2 there, yeah, that's kind of one of the pet peeves of me is that like your real estate agent for the most part is doing what you would be doing on the computer 9 times out of 10 because you already know what you want. So like the house that we bought it because we saw it online and we just sent the link to the real estate agent, and like 9 out of 10 people are already doing that. There was a couple of houses that we were shown that she sent us a link for, but like at the end of the day, it's your decision. So as far as like labor, that real estate agents, my opinion, they don't really do as much labor as they should for the amount of commission that they get. That's just my opinion, and it really depends on the area. I know that some real estate agents might have that one customer that's like always taking them to like 10 different houses in a week and they're still not buying, and maybe they're never gonna buy, but on average, I feel like that's not the case. That's kind of rare.
Offer. This is where your agent will submit the paperwork to the seller with your offer, $500,000 for a $500,000 house. This is also the...
Yeah, I guess the only thing I want to mention about submitting your offer is that they're legally supposed to submit the offer regardless of what their opinion is of what they think that offer is. So if the real estate agent of the buyer and the real estate agent of the seller are going to talk with each other, and regardless of what they decide, they're still legally obligated to make that communication to the seller and the buyer of what was communicated between them as far as price goes. So when I came in at $40,000 plus of the asking price, my real estate agent was not happy about that because her commission's obviously going to be lower, right? But it doesn't matter if she's happy about it or not. Her job at the end of the day is to communicate that that price and that offer. And, you know, obviously that real estate agent, my real estate agent of the buyer, has to legally communicate that to the real estate agent of the seller. And whether or not the real estate agent of the seller likes it or not does not matter. They are still legally obligated to communicate that to the actual seller, the homeowner. So the only thing I wanted to mention about that. So if you don't trust your real estate agent, tell them, hey, this is the offer. It is what it is, like it or not.